town is called Colton, Virginia. Picture red brick sidewalks. Picture a main street lined with old oak trees just starting to drop their autumn leaves. Picture white church steeples, boutique shops with handwritten chalkboard signs, and a population that has been mostly the same for about 200 years. It's the kind of place where everybody knows everybody.
And everybody notices when somebody new walks in. Curtis Fletcher had driven up from Washington, D.C. the night before. His mother grew up in a small farmhouse just outside of town, and she'd passed away the previous spring. He was here for a quiet weekend, just to walk the roads she used to walk, just to breathe the air she used to breathe. He pulled up to Cornerstone Coffee a little after 8 in the morning. The bell above the door jingled as he stepped inside. The smell hit him first. Dark roasted beans, fresh-baked blueberry scones, a hint of cinnamon from the display case. The espresso machine hissed and sputtered behind the counter. A mounted television in the corner played highlights from last night's college football game on low volume. Curtis was dressed down, worn brown leather jacket, faded jeans, reading glasses hanging from his collar, a paperback novel tucked under his arm. He looked like any regular guy on any regular weekend. Nothing about him said federal law enforcement. Nothing about him said Washington, D.C. He walked up to the counter and smiled at the young woman working the register. Her name tag read, Elena Dawson. "Good morning. Can I get a large coffee, black, and one of those blueberry scones?" Elena smiled back. "Sure thing. For here or to go?" "For here, please. Gonna sit a while if that's okay." "Take your time. Booth by the window's my favorite." Curtis paid in cash. He dropped a generous tip in the jar. He thanked her by name. Then he walked to the corner booth she'd pointed out and settled in. Here's the part of the story you need to hold on to, because what I'm about to tell you, nobody in that cafe knew. Not Elena, not the old couple sharing a muffin by the door, not the college girl typing on her laptop, and definitely not the woman in the opposite booth watching Curtis over the rim of her teacup. Curtis Fletcher wasn't just some guy on vacation. He was the newly appointed chief of the FBI Civil Rights Division. That means he ran the entire federal operation responsible for investigating hate crimes, police misconduct, and civil rights violations across the United States of America. He had testified before Congress. He had put corrupt sheriffs behind bars. He had dismantled white supremacist networks that the public would never even hear about. But today he was just a black man, drinking a cup of coffee and reading the morning paper in a town that had absolutely no idea who he was. The woman watching him from across the cafe was Gloria Patterson, mid-60s, silver hair pinned up neat, pearl earrings, the kind of woman who had lived in Colton her whole life and believed, deep in her bones, that it should stay exactly the same forever. She came to Cornerstone every Saturday at the same time. She sat in the same booth, and she watched the door like a security camera. Gloria had been watching Curtis since the moment he walked in. Then the bell above the door jingled again, and in walked Officer Troy Garrison. Early 30s, buzz cut, broad shoulders, uniform pressed sharp. A few regulars nodded at him. He didn't nod back. His eyes were already scanning the room like he was looking for trouble, and he found it immediately. He found Curtis Fletcher. Garrison's whole body language shifted. His jaw tightened. His right hand slid down to rest on his belt, fingers brushing the handle of his service weapon. He didn't move yet. He just stood there, in the doorway, staring. And from across the cafe, Gloria Patterson caught his eye. She gave him the smallest, most deliberate nod, a silent permission, a go-ahead, the kind of signal that says, "I see him too, and I'm with you." Outside, the October sun was still golden and warm. Inside, the temperature had just started to drop. Garrison's boots hit the hardwood floor in slow, deliberate steps. Every single head in the cafe tracked him as he moved. He walked past the register. He walked past the glass display case full of fresh scones and muffins. He walked straight to the corner booth where Curtis Fletcher was quietly reading his newspaper. And then came the words you already heard. The ugly words. The words that made Elena Dawson's stomach drop behind the counter and her hands go cold. Curtis didn't raise his voice. He didn't raise his hands. He simply folded his newspaper in half and set it down gently on the table, right next to his steaming coffee cup. Officer, my name is Curtis Fletcher. I'm a paying customer. Here's my receipt. He slid the little paper slip across the table with 2 fingers. Garrison didn't even glance at it. I don't care what you paid for, boy. I care what you're doing in my town. I'm visiting family property. I'm reading the newspaper. I'm drinking coffee. You're casing the place is what you're doing. I can spot a criminal from across the street. A chair scraped loudly. The young mother by the window pulled her toddler closer to her chest and covered the child's ears. The old couple, near the door, stopped eating, mid-bite. Elena's phone was already in her hand, angled low behind the pastry display, the red record dot blinking silently. And that's exactly when Gloria Patterson decided to add her voice to the fire. Officer, I've been watching him ever since he walked in that door. He hasn't touched his phone once. Just sitting there, staring out the window like he's waiting for something. That's not normal behavior. That's not normal at all for around here. Her voice cut through the cafe like a shard of broken glass. Loud enough for everyone to hear clearly. Loud enough to make absolutely sure Garrison knew he had a witness on his side. Curtis glanced at her. Just for a moment. He took in her pearl earrings, her pinched little mouth, the thin smile of a woman who had been waiting her entire life for a moment exactly like this one. Then he looked away. He refused to give her the satisfaction of a response. Garrison squared his shoulders and puffed out his chest. Gloria's words were all the permission he needed to push harder. You hear that? Concerned citizen. That's what we call probable cause around here, boy. Officer, with respect, that is not what probable cause means. Oh, now the thug thinks he's a lawyer. You think you're smarter than me, boy? I'm saying you have no legal basis to detain me. Garrison reached down and grabbed his shoulder radio. He pressed the button hard with his thumb. His voice went up an octave, performing for the microphone and for the whole cafe. Dispatch, this is Garrison. I'm at Cornerstone Coffee conducting a welfare check on a suspicious male individual, requesting information on that reported incident from earlier this morning. Copy. There was no reported incident. Curtis knew it the second he heard those words leave Garrison's mouth. He had investigated this exact tactic in federal cases across 6 different states. Officers inventing a call. Officers fabricating a pretext. Officers building a fake paper trail to justify a stop that had nothing whatsoever to do with crime and everything to do with the color of a man's skin. The radio crackled back with static and a vague, mumbled response. Garrison smiled like he'd just won the lottery. Yeah, thought so. Suspect description matches. Black male, medium build, dark jacket. You fit the bill perfectly, boy. What was the specific description, officer? I just told you. No, you told me a category. Height, weight, age, distinguishing features. What store was robbed? What time did it happen? What was taken? Garrison's jaw twitched violently. He didn't have any answers. Because there were no answers to give. He leaned down, placed both of his big palms flat on the table, and pushed his face close enough to Curtis that Curtis could smell the cheap coffee on his breath. I'm going to tell you one more time, boy. Stand up. Show me some identification, or I'm going to drag your sorry ass out of this booth myself. Elena's hands were shaking so badly, her phone almost slipped out of them. She gripped it tighter. She kept recording. Her heart was pounding so loud in her own ears, she could barely hear the conversation anymore. Curtis still didn't move an inch. His voice stayed level and impossibly quiet. The kind of quiet that made Garrison even angrier because he simply could not understand it. Officer, I am not legally required to provide identification during a consensual encounter in a public establishment. I am a paying customer. I have committed no crime, and I am asking you, respectfully, to please step back from this table. Respectfully, Garrison laughed out loud. It was an ugly, barking laugh. Did everyone hear that? The thug wants respect. In my town. After he shows up out of nowhere on a Saturday morning looking like he just rolled out of a crack house in the city. The college girl on her laptop gasped audibly and covered her mouth with both hands. Her eyes filled up with tears. The old man near the door looked at his wife. His wife looked down at her empty plate. Nobody said a single word. Nobody stood up. Nobody defended the quiet man sitting in the corner booth. Silence. That awful, suffocating silence that always shows up when decent people decide their own comfort is worth more than another human being's dignity. Curtis felt every single second of that silence. And I want you to really understand what was happening inside this man right then. Because this is someone who has personally trained federal agents on de-escalation tactics. This is someone who has literally written federal policy on how to handle police encounters gone wrong. This is someone who has testified before the United States Senate about racial profiling in American law enforcement. And now he was living it himself, from the wrong side of the table. He could have ended this whole ugly scene in one single sentence. He could have said, I'm the chief of the FBI Civil Rights Division, and you are about to destroy your entire career. He could have flashed his federal credentials. He could have dropped names and titles that would have made Garrison's blood turn to ice water in his veins. But he didn't, because Curtis Fletcher wanted to see exactly how far this man was truly willing to go. He wanted the whole, complete picture. He wanted every word, every gesture, every single ugly decision on the official record. Not just for himself. For every person in America who had ever sat at a table like that one without the power to fight back. So he stayed quiet. He stayed still. And he let Garrison dig his own grave, one shovelful at a time. I'll ask you one more time, boy. Stand up now. Curtis slowly reached for his coffee cup. He took a careful sip. He set it back down with barely a sound. He made direct eye contact with Garrison and spoke in a voice so calm it barely rose above a whisper. Officer, everything you are doing right now is being witnessed by every single person in this cafe. I would strongly encourage you to reconsider your very next move. Is that supposed to be a threat? It's a warning. Garrison's entire face went red. His neck went red. His ears went red. He hadn't been spoken to like that by anyone, let alone by a black man, in years. Maybe ever. He turned his back on Curtis and stomped to the middle of the cafe floor. He yanked his radio off his shoulder again. Dispatch, I need immediate backup at Cornerstone Coffee. Uncooperative suspect. Possible obstruction of justice. Send a unit, now. And just like that, What had started as ugly harassment became something much, much bigger, because backup was already on the way, and the second person Garrison was about to pull into this wasn't going to calm anything down. He was going to pour gasoline onto an already burning fire. Curtis picked his newspaper back up. He opened it to the exact page he'd been reading before. He kept his breathing slow and steady. His hands were rock solid. But across the cafe, Gloria Patterson had already reached into her leather handbag. She was pulling out her cell phone. She was dialing a number she knew by heart. The number of the one person in all of Colton who could make absolutely sure this black man paid the full price for refusing to bow down to a badge. Her husband. 4 minutes. That's how long it took for the backup to arrive. 4 long, suffocating minutes in which nobody in that cafe breathed quite right. The bell above the door jingled, and Deputy Wade Hollis walked in. Late 20s, thin, nervous-looking. The kind of cop who still flinched when his radio crackled. He spotted Garrison immediately and walked over fast. "What do we got, Troy?" "Got a suspect matching the description from this morning, refusing to cooperate, refusing to show ID, mouthing off like he owns the place." Hollis looked at Curtis. Curtis looked back at him, and for just a split second, Hollis's face flickered with something. Doubt, maybe. Hesitation. But then he glanced at Garrison, and that flicker disappeared. "All right. How do you want to handle it?" "We're taking him in." Garrison turned back toward the booth. His smile was back, uglier this time. He had a partner now. He had backup. He had power. "Stand up, boy. Hands on the table. You're being detained." Curtis set his newspaper down for the second time. He looked up at both officers calmly. "On what charge, officer?" "On whatever charge I say, that's what. Stand up. Now." Curtis slowly slid out of the booth and stood. He kept his hands visible at his sides. He didn't make any sudden movements. He knew better. Every black man in America knows better. "Hands on the table. Spread your legs." "Officer, I do not consent to a search." "Did I ask for your consent?" Hands on the table. Curtis placed his palms flat on the wooden tabletop. Garrison stepped behind him and started patting him down roughly, hands shoving into jacket pockets, hands running down his sides, hands slapping his legs hard enough to leave marks. It wasn't a search. It was a violation to dress up in a uniform. Garrison pulled out Curtis's leather wallet and tossed it on the table. He pulled out a cell phone and tossed it next to the wallet. He pulled out a set of car keys. And then he pulled out a small stack of business cards, held together with a thin silver clip. He barely even looked at them. He just dropped them on the pile with everything else. That stack of business cards, sitting right there on the table, in plain view. If Garrison had bothered to read just one of them, this entire story would have ended right then and there. But he didn't. Because in his mind, he had already decided who Curtis was. And nothing, not even the truth printed on heavy cardstock in front of his own eyes, was going to change that. He opened the wallet instead, pulled out the cash, counted it slowly, almost mockingly. Well, well. A lot of cash for a guy just drinking coffee. "Where'd you get all this, boy? Selling something?" "That's my money, officer, legally earned." "Sure it is." He pulled out a credit card and flipped it over. He pulled out a driver's license and squinted at it. And this is where it got interesting. Because Curtis Fletcher's official federal ID was also tucked inside that wallet. A thin card with the letters FBI printed in gold. But Garrison didn't pull it out. He just flipped past it without even registering what he was seeing, too busy looking for something incriminating to notice the thing that would have saved his career. Hollis stepped closer and looked over Garrison's shoulder. His eyes landed on the business cards. He tilted his head slightly. Something caught his attention. He opened his mouth like he was about to say something, but Garrison was already moving on. "Where are you from, boy?" "Washington, D.C." "D.C., huh? Long drive for a cup of coffee. Who are you visiting?" "My late mother's property. She grew up here." Convenient story. It's not a story. It's the truth. "You got a weapon on you?" "No." "Vehicle?" "Parked 2 blocks down. Blue sedan." Garrison leaned in close. His voice dropped to a hiss. "Here's how it's gonna go. People around here look out for each other. We notice when someone doesn't fit in. And you don't fit in, boy. Not today. Not ever. So you're gonna come with us nice and quiet, or this gets ugly real fast." That's when Gloria Patterson hung up her phone. Across the cafe, calm as ice, she slipped it back into her handbag and took a slow, satisfied sip of her tea. Outside the cafe window, a silver SUV pulled up to the curb. Unmarked, tinted windows. The kind of vehicle that commands attention without showing off. The driver's door opened and a man stepped out. Tall, silver hair combed back neat. Dark suit under a tan trench coat. Polished boots. The kind of walk that belongs to someone who has never had to wait in line for anything in his entire life. The bell above the door jingled for the 3rd time that morning, and every single regular in Cornerstone Coffee sat up a little straighter. "Morning, Deputy Chief," the old man near the door said at first. A few other voices echoed behind him, a ripple of nervous respect moving across the cafe. Deputy Chief Russell Patterson, the 2nd highest ranking officer in the entire Colton Police Department. Gloria Patterson's husband of 41 years. And the single most important reason Troy Garrison had never, ever been held accountable for anything. Gloria gave her husband a small wave from her booth. Patterson nodded back without smiling. He walked straight to Garrison. "What's the situation, officer?" "Sir, uncooperative suspect. Refused to show ID. Refused to search. Matches the description from the call this morning." Patterson turned and looked at Curtis for the first time, and the look on his face said everything. It wasn't a surprise. It wasn't a concern. It was the exact same look his wife had given Curtis 20 minutes earlier. The look of a man who had already decided the verdict before he'd heard a single word of testimony. "Sir, I'd like to address you directly." Curtis's voice was still calm, still quiet, still that same impossible steadiness. "I have committed no crime. Your officer has conducted an illegal search without probable cause. He has fabricated a pretext for detention. I am asking you, as the ranking officer on the scene, to please correct this situation before it becomes something none of us can walk back." Patterson stared at him for a long moment. Then he let out a short, cold laugh. "Son, I'll tell you exactly how things work in my town. When my officers ask for cooperation, people cooperate. When they ask for ID, people show ID. And when people give my officers an attitude, they ride downtown in the back of a cruiser. That's how it works. That's how it's always worked. Deputy Chief, I would strongly advise you to... You don't advise me of anything, boy. I'm the one doing the advising here." Patterson turned to Garrison, without breaking eye contact with Curtis. "Cuff him." Garrison's smile widened. He reached for his handcuffs. The metal clinked as he pulled them off his belt. He stepped behind Curtis and yanked his wrists back hard. The cuffs clicked shut around them. Too tight. Deliberately too tight. Elena gasped behind the counter. Her phone was still recording every second of it. The old couple near the door froze in horror. The young mother covered her toddler's eyes. The college girl was crying silently into her sleeve. And Gloria Patterson? Gloria was smiling, a small, satisfied, approving smile. The smile of a woman watching the natural order of things being properly restored. Curtis was walked toward the front door of the cafe. His wrists burned where the cuffs dug into his skin. His coffee sat half-finished on the table. His newspaper was still open to page 6. But here's the thing. Curtis Fletcher didn't resist. He didn't shout. He didn't even look angry. He looked patient, like a man waiting for the exact right moment to flip an entire town completely upside down. Okay, wait, hold up. I gotta stop right here because oh my God, y'all. This right here? This is where it stops being just one racist cop and starts being something so much nastier. Like, I literally had to pause and take a breath. Just watch what happens next. Garrison shoved Curtis toward the front door of the cafe. The little bell jingled as they stepped out onto the sidewalk. The autumn sun hit Curtis's face. He squinted once, adjusted to the light, and kept walking. Patterson followed a few steps behind, arms crossed, wearing the satisfied look of a man who had just put something in its proper place. The patrol car was parked crooked against the curb. Garrison yanked open the back door. "Watch your head, boy. Don't want you saying I hurt you." "Officer, before you put me in that vehicle, I am entitled to make one phone call. I'd like to make it now." Patterson let out another cold laugh from behind him. "Let him call his lawyer, Troy. Won't make a bit of difference. Nobody in D.C. is driving down here to save him." Garrison smirked. He pulled Curtis's cell phone out of his pocket and held it up in front of Curtis's face. "What's the number, boy? I'll dial it for you, since your hands are a little tied up right now." 202-455-6198. Garrison tapped the numbers in, slow and mocking. He hit the green button and held the phone up to Curtis's ear. The line rang exactly one time before a man's voice answered. "Bradley?" Curtis spoke 3 sentences. 3 sentences that would echo through that town for years to come. "Nolan, it's Curtis. I'm being unlawfully detained by Colton police, including their deputy chief, who personally ordered my arrest. Bring the full team." Click. Patterson's smirk faltered for half a second. Something about the tone, the calm command in Curtis's voice, the way he said the words "full team," like they meant something specific. But he shook it off. He'd been in law enforcement for 34 years. He'd seen every kind of bluff. This was just another one. "Put him in the car, Troy." Garrison pushed Curtis's head down and shoved him into the back seat. The door slammed shut. Curtis sat there quietly, wrists aching, watching the 2 officers through the window. 11 minutes passed. Nothing happened. Garrison went back inside the cafe to, as he put it, manage witnesses. Patterson paced the sidewalk, making calls of his own, already trying to get ahead of any paperwork. Then came the 12th minute, and everything changed. A deep rumble rolled down Main Street. Not 1 engine, 3. Patterson looked up. 3 black Chevy Suburbans, windows tinted so dark they looked like obsidian, rolled around the corner in perfect formation. Federal plates, the kind of plates you only see on government vehicles in Washington. They pulled into the parking lot of Cornerstone Coffee and stopped in a tight semicircle around the patrol car. The doors opened at exactly the same moment. 8 people stepped out, 4 men, 4 women, all wearing dark blue windbreakers with 3 yellow letters blazing across the back. FBI. Patterson's phone slipped. It didn't fall. He caught it, but his hand was already shaking. The man in front was tall, gray at the temples, sharp blue eyes. Supervisory Special Agent Nolan Bradley. He walked straight toward Patterson like the man was barely worth his attention. Deputy Chief Russell Patterson? Who's asking? FBI. Where is Chief Fletcher? Patterson blinked. The word didn't compute. His mouth moved before his brain could catch up. Chief who? Curtis Fletcher, Chief of the Civil Rights Division, Federal Bureau of Investigation. Where is he? That's the exact moment Patterson's face drained of every drop of color it had. 34 years in law enforcement. 4 decades of running this town like his own personal kingdom. And his legs almost gave out on a sunny sidewalk in front of a coffee shop. He pointed a trembling finger toward the back of the patrol car. Bradley turned and walked calmly to the vehicle. He pulled open the back door. Curtis stepped out with the quiet grace of a man who had just been waiting for his ride. Bradley reached into his jacket, pulled out a small silver handcuff key, and unlocked the cuffs himself. They fell away from Curtis's wrists and clinked onto the asphalt. Curtis rubbed the red, angry lines the metal had left behind. Sorry we took 12 minutes, sir. Traffic on the interstate. You're right on time, Nolan. Right then, Garrison came barreling out of the cafe, red-faced and ready to yell about something. He stopped dead. His mouth fell open. His detainee was standing free on the sidewalk, surrounded by federal agents. One of them was already walking into the cafe to collect Elena's phone footage. On the table inside, that little stack of business cards Garrison had tossed aside an hour ago was still sitting there in plain view. And right there on the top card, printed in clean gold letters on heavy cream stock, were the words he should have read the first time. Curtis Fletcher, Chief, Civil Rights Division, Federal Bureau of Investigation. Bradley turned to Garrison. His voice was flat and professional and absolutely terrifying. Badge number, body camera footage, your supervisor's name. Right now. Garrison's mouth opened and closed like a fish pulled out of water. He looked desperately toward Patterson. But Patterson had nothing left to give him, because Bradley was already turning toward the deputy chief with the same terrible calm. Deputy Chief Patterson, you are on video personally ordering the unlawful arrest of a federal official. I strongly advise you not to leave this location. And from the cafe window, Gloria Patterson dropped her teacup. It shattered across the floor in 100 pieces. The sound of shattered porcelain was still echoing across the cafe when Garrison found his voice again. It came out thin, cracked, desperate. Sir, Agent, this is a misunderstanding. There was a call. There was a report. I was just doing my job. Bradley didn't even blink. Your body camera. Now. There was a malfunction earlier. A malfunction. Yes, sir. Officer Garrison, intentionally disabling a body camera during a civil rights stop is a separate federal offense under Title 18. I hope you understand what that means. Garrison's knees actually wobbled. Real, visible wobble. The big tough cop who had been barking boy and thug 20 minutes ago couldn't hold his own body weight anymore. One of the female agents stepped forward and removed his service weapon from its holster. Another removed his badge from his chest. A third took his handcuffs off his belt. the same handcuffs that had just been biting into Curtis Fletcher's wrists. Patterson, meanwhile, was trying a different strategy. He straightened his shoulders, forced his best command voice, and stepped toward Bradley with his hand extended. "Agent Bradley, let's talk man to man here. Professional courtesy. I'm sure we can work this out before anybody does anything they might regret. I've been in law enforcement for 34 years. I know how these things—" "Deputy Chief Patterson," Bradley's voice cut him off like a blade. "You personally ordered the unlawful detention of the chief of the FBI Civil Rights Division. There is nothing to work out. There is only what happens next. And what happens next is a federal investigation." Patterson's hand dropped to his side. He reached for his phone instead. His thumb started scrolling fast, looking for contacts. The mayor, the state senator, the old friends, the old favors. The network that had kept him untouchable for 4 decades. "Sir, I wouldn't make any of those calls if I were you. Any attempt to contact public officials to interfere with this investigation will be treated as obstruction of justice. Do you understand me?" The phone slid out of Patterson's hand and onto the sidewalk. He didn't even bend to pick it up. That's when Captain Gerald Sullivan came screeching around the corner in an unmarked cruiser, tires smoking against the curb. He'd gotten the call 3 minutes ago, and he had clearly driven it faster than the law allowed. He stumbled out of the car, pale and sweating, tie crooked, already doing political math in his head. He saw Patterson standing there looking like a corpse. He saw Garrison stripped of his badge. He saw the line of FBI agents, and he saw Curtis Fletcher calmly rubbing his wrists beside a federal vehicle. He walked straight to Curtis. His hand was out before he'd even closed the distance. "Chief Fletcher, Captain Gerald Sullivan, Colton PD. I am so sorry. I had no idea. This is not how we do things here. I swear to—" "Captain." Curtis's voice was polite, but it was also stone cold. "Your deputy chief personally ordered my illegal arrest after your officer racially profiled me, illegally searched me, and fabricated a pretext for detention. Your department isn't dealing with one rogue officer. You're dealing with a chain of command. My office will be in contact by Monday morning." Sullivan's outstretched hand slowly dropped to his side. He looked like a man who had just watched his entire career fall off a cliff in slow motion. Bradley was already giving quiet orders. Garrison was placed in the back of one of the federal SUVs. Hollis was placed in another. Patterson was walked to the third vehicle himself. And here's the part you're going to love. That third vehicle was the exact same type of patrol car he had ordered Curtis Fletcher put into 30 minutes earlier. Same color, same make, same back seat. He had to duck his head to get in. An agent had to push him down gently by the shoulder, just like Garrison had pushed Curtis. Gloria Patterson stood frozen behind the cafe window, a broken teacup at her feet, her whole world collapsing in real time. An agent approached her from inside and informed her that she would be needed for questioning and strongly advised to retain counsel. She didn't say a word. She just stared out the window at her husband being driven away in the back of a cruiser. Curtis picked up his business cards from the cafe table. He tucked them neatly back into his jacket pocket. Then he sat back down in his booth, picked up his newspaper, and took a slow sip from his cold coffee. The real reckoning hadn't even started yet. By Monday morning, the entire town of Colton had woken up to a completely different world. Elena Dawson had uploaded her phone video to the internet late Saturday night. By Sunday at noon, it had 3 million views. By Monday at sunrise, it had passed 14 million. Every major news network in America was running it. The anchors used words like shocking and disturbing and systemic. News vans lined up outside Cornerstone Coffee. Reporters interviewed shaken regulars on the sidewalk where Curtis Fletcher had been shoved into a patrol car. One clip in particular went viral on its own. A 6-second loop of Gloria Patterson nodding approvingly from her booth while Curtis was being handcuffed. People, this is what complicity looks like. Within 48 hours, Gloria's face was a meme. Her smile was the new symbol of quiet, polite American racism. Hashtags climbed to the top of every platform. Hashtag coffee while black. Hashtag Curtis Fletcher stood. Hashtag the whole tree. That last one came from a tweet that read, "This isn't a bad apple problem. It's the whole damn tree." It got retweeted 2 million times in a single day. While the internet was burning, the FBI was doing its real work. Supervisory Special Agent Nolan Bradley and a team of 12 federal investigators descended on the Colton Police Department headquarters by Monday morning. They carried boxes. Lots of boxes. They carted away server drives, filing cabinets full of internal affairs reports, body camera archives, personnel records, and every single email Russell Patterson had sent in the last 5 years. What they found was uglier than anything the public had imagined. Officer Troy Garrison had conducted 23 stops of Black and Latino citizens in the past 18 months. Not one had resulted in a valid criminal charge. 12 of those stops involved illegal searches. 3 involved physical force. 5 victims had filed formal complaints with the department, and every single one of those complaints had landed on the desk of Deputy Chief Russell Patterson. Every single one of them had been buried. Internal affairs files had been altered. Body camera footage had been marked as corrupted or lost. Investigators had been reassigned the moment they got too close. The pattern went back 19 years. Patterson hadn't been protecting Garrison. He had been running a protection racket inside his own department for almost 2 decades. But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part came when investigators pulled Patterson's department email account. They found dozens of messages between him and Garrison. Patterson had been personally coaching the younger officer on exactly how to write incident reports that would survive legal scrutiny after a racial profiling stop. What phrases to use, what details to leave out, how to justify a search that had no business happening. It was a masterclass in civil rights violations, written in black and white by the second highest ranking officer in Colton. 3 other officers were named in the emails. All 3 were suspended within 72 hours. The community response was immediate and massive. Peaceful protests filled the town square for 6 straight days. Black churches organized marches. White college students from the local university walked out of classes. Clergy from every denomination stood on the steps of City Hall and demanded a full federal intervention. 6 additional victims of Garrison stops came forward publicly. 3 of them testified that Patterson had personally called them and warned them against filing formal complaints. One woman, a school teacher, said Patterson had threatened to report her nephew to immigration if she pursued her case. Colton City Council held an emergency session. They voted unanimously for mandatory bias training, quarterly body camera audits, and the creation of an independent civilian oversight board with full subpoena power. The vote took 11 minutes. Nobody spoke against it. Nobody dared. The federal trial came 6 months later. It was held in the United States District Court for the Eastern District of Virginia. The courtroom was packed every single day. Judge Dorothy Caldwell presided. She was a 64-year-old black woman who had been on the federal bench for 19 years, and she had absolutely no patience for the nonsense that was about to be argued in front of her. Troy Garrison was charged with deprivation of civil rights under color of law, unlawful detention, illegal search and seizure, and falsification of a federal dispatch record. His attorney tried the just following department protocol defense. Judge Caldwell shut it down in under a minute. Russell Patterson was charged with conspiracy to deprive civil rights, obstruction of justice, falsification of official records, and abuse of authority under color of law. His attorney tried the distinguished career defense. Judge Caldwell shut that one down too. Gloria Patterson was charged with obstruction of justice for her role in coordinating with her husband after the incident, and for a series of text messages showing she had helped him try to alter witness statements. Elena Dawson testified first. She held her phone up to the court and played the full, unedited 51-minute recording. Nobody moved. Nobody coughed. You could hear the hum of the overhead lights. 8 prior victims of Garrison's stops testified next. Then the cooperating witnesses. Then the forensic experts who had recovered Patterson's deleted emails. The evidence was overwhelming. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Troy Garrison was found guilty on all counts, sentenced to 6 years in federal prison, permanently barred from law enforcement for life. Russell Patterson was found guilty on all counts, sentenced to 10 years in federal prison, stripped of his pension, permanently barred from any public office. Gloria Patterson was found guilty of obstruction of justice, sentenced to 2 years suspended, with 300 hours of community service to be completed at a civil rights education center. Wade Hollis was found guilty of complicity and failure to intervene, sentenced to 18 months, required to testify in 3 related departmental cases. Captain Gerald Sullivan was forced to resign under federal pressure within 2 weeks of the verdicts. The Colton Police Department entered a federal consent decree requiring direct DOJ oversight for a minimum of 5 years. 3 additional officers lost their jobs. 2 more retired quietly. And on the courthouse steps the day the sentences were handed down, Curtis Fletcher stood calmly in front of a wall of microphones and said only one sentence to the press. "Justice delayed is still justice, but justice that comes this loud sends a message that injustice anywhere in America is now borrowed time." Then he walked down the steps and got into a waiting car. No celebration, no smile. Just the quiet satisfaction of a man who had done exactly what he came to do. 8 months after the verdicts came down, Curtis Fletcher drove back to Colton, Virginia. It was a Saturday morning, late spring this time. The oak trees along Main Street were heavy with green leaves instead of dropping gold ones. The air smelled like cut grass and fresh rain on warm pavement. He parked in the same spot 2 blocks down from Cornerstone Coffee and walked the same sidewalk he had walked that October morning. The bell above the cafe door jingled when he stepped inside. And something was different. You could feel it the second you crossed the threshold. The light was the same. The hiss of the espresso machine was the same. The smell of dark roasted beans and fresh blueberry scones was the same. But the air itself felt lighter, like a held breath had finally been released. Elena Dawson was still behind the counter. She looked up from the register, and her whole face changed when she saw him. She didn't say anything. She just put her hand over her heart for a second. Then she smiled. Curtis smiled back. "Large coffee, black. And one of those blueberry scones, please." "For here?" "For here. If that corner booth's still my favorite. It's been waiting for you." He walked past the counter and noticed 2 things on the wall near the register. The first was a framed newspaper article from the trial. The headline read, "Colton reckons with its own reflection." Below it was a second frame, smaller, a handwritten note in Elena's looping handwriting. It said, "Courage starts with one person who refuses to look away." Curtis paused at the wall for a long moment. Then he kept walking. He sat down in the corner booth by the window. He pulled out a newspaper. He opened it to the sports page this time. Across the cafe, the booth where Gloria Patterson used to sit was now occupied by a young black couple with a baby in a high chair. The baby was laughing at something her mother had just said. The father was feeding her tiny pieces of banana. They looked completely at home. Elena brought the coffee and the scone to Curtis's table. "It's on the house, Chief. Always." "Thank you, Elena, but I'm still tipping." He left the same generous tip he had left that first morning, exact same amount, down to the penny. Elena had news for him, too. She told him quietly that she had been accepted to the University of Virginia School of Law. Starting in the fall, she was going to focus on civil rights litigation. Curtis set his coffee down and looked her in the eye. "When you graduate, call my office. There will be a seat waiting for you." Her eyes filled up fast. She nodded hard, turned around, and walked back behind the counter before anyone could see her cry. Curtis Fletcher sat in that booth for another 30 quiet minutes. He finished his coffee. He finished his scone. He read 3 full pages of his newspaper. And then he stood up, put on his leather jacket, and walked out into the spring sunshine to drive back to Washington. Okay, wait. Real talk for a sec? Like, this whole story? Made up. But the racist stops, the fake excuses, the bosses burying everything for years? Nah, fam. That's straight up real. Go ahead. Google it. The only cap part? How fast justice hit. In real life? Bruh, it just doesn't.